at least put himself in a position to possibly nick a win.
He had a bit of a lonely race there in race 2.
Yeah,
So to see, considering how nice his car looks.
yeah, he was very quick, and he has set the fastest lap of the weekend. He set a 34.0 in the initial practice session, and was looking the goods for pole, but made a slight mistake in qualifying 1 that cost him a couple tenths, which Ricky Slick took. Well, he capitalised on and was able to nick pole by about a tenth of a second or so. And then, even though in both races, it has looked like he's got the great initial jump away, it's just that second bite of traction afterwards where he just hasn't quite nailed it. And in the first race, it cost him a position or 2. Well, eventually he'd lose out to Turmo and then had a spin later on. And then in that second race, got stuck behind a couple slower guys after going around, and then was in no position to really catch the guys in front and had a massive lead to the guys behind. So it would have been a lonely race for him. So he'll be hoping to make up for it in the final race of the evening.
He's just gone around there and set a 1:35.2. So quick warm-up laps.
He did manage to do a couple 30. Well, he did 35.2s and 35.1s in the warm-up session first time round. So, or second in the last warm-up. So he has got the pace there. He's just got to consistently put it in. And this time around, obviously being reverse grid and starting at the back of the field, he is going to have to contend with getting past guys pretty quickly, which isn't really one of his strong suits. We have seen Ricky Slick and Brendan Ross being able to just cut their way through traffic on the opening couple laps in not only the SF3 series but also in the other Monday night series in the touring cars. So that's something Bolger is going to have to work on if he wants to close that gap between himself and just those guys that keep continuing to just be that little bit faster than him.
Ooh, big slide coming out of the hairpin there. He seems pretty throttle heavy at the moment coming out of that final turn. He's done that a couple of times now.
Yeah, certainly testing the limits of how much he can push that car. He was up by 2 tenths, so it was going to be a fairly decent lap until that. He's overcooked at the final chicane there, so that would have cost him a little bit of time. And yeah, he must have got a track cut there, I think. But let's got Cracker out there doing some lap times. He want to find a bit of time. 39.6 the only time he's set so far with a minute left in the warm-up session. Also got Luke Joyner out there. He set a 35.7, so I believe that's pretty close to his personal best around here. So he's looking the goods for the final race of the evening.
Cracker just before did have a big spin at turn 4 on the exit of turn 4, so I think that might have been what impeded his first lap time.
Yeah, he has struggled a little bit in these F3 cars. In the other car, in tin tops, he seems to actually do quite well. Does Cracker, especially in the touring cars, he seems to nick up some decent results. Even though he's not the fastest, he is generally quite consistent. Doesn't make too many mistakes, but in these things, he doesn't quite grasp them as well as he does, say, a GT car or a touring car.
Yeah, well, they are a completely different ball game compared to anything with a roof, especially these cars. One of the closest cars to Formula One you can get, so bit of a learning curve.
Yeah, they're obviously very, very light, and they have a considerable amount of power for for how light they are. So that's why they can be a bit tricky, and it's why they're one of the steps just prior to Formula One. Albeit now there's about 50 million different categories to get into Formula One. To see Steve Bolger right at the death, seeing a 34.6, so he'll be hoping to replicate that in the race, that's for sure. But time has expired. There's only 3 guys set a lap time in the warm-up session, but just about to get underway. As you can probably hear there, just ticked over to the race session, and now we just wait for the drivers to form up and begin the formation lap.
very interesting that a lot of the drivers there didn't take advantage of the warm-up lap. I haven't seen that myself. I'm personally one to take advantage of all the bit of track time I can get. So
It does also help rubber up the circuit a little bit as well, but obviously a few guys just are quite comfortable with the setups they have, and I can understand certainly Brendan Ross and Ricky Slick not wanting to, or not needing really to go out there and set lap times, but I would have thought some of the other guys would go out there and try and tune the setups and find a bit of time. But obviously they seem to be quite comfortable, perhaps doing or having to go and do a toilet break or grab a drink of water or something, but yeah, only 3 guys setting lap time as we get underway on the formation lap. So Josh, while you're here, might as well put you to work. So why don't you go through the grid for us?
no worries. So on pole position, we have Brownie in the Red Bull liveried Formula 3. And just as I'm talking about that, Cracker in second place is weaving, very aggressively weaving, nearly taking out Brownie before the first lap. But no, interesting. Anyway, we have Luke Joyner in third position. So it'll be interesting to see how he takes advantage of the start here. If he's going to slip it straight up the inside and go around the outside of turn 2, or is he going to move on the outside of turn 1 and try and get the inside line for turn 2 to defend against River Whisper in fourth position. We have Termo in fifth. We have Wayne Whitmore in the, I don't know whether it's inspired by Renault or it is the Renault liveried.
It's a Renault
Yeah.
they do have a team in F3 Series, so that's why there is a couple of Formula 1 inspired liveries. It's because they do sort of have their own junior teams that they sponsor. So
No worries. Fair enough. That's a very, very pretty looking Formula 3. I'm quite a big fan of that. Then we have Brendan Ross in seventh position. We have probably my favourite looking car on the grid, Steve Bolger's Formula 3. Is that a Formula 3 Asia inspired car? Or?
it's a Ferrari Academy
Ah,
car, and they do have, I think they've there's a couple of cars with the same livery. There's even one that's the same livery, but instead of red, it's blue.
right. No worries. It looks, I can actually, now that you say that, I could see a little bit of Marcus Armstrong's livery in that. So very nice. I'm a big fan of that. Then down the pack, we have Ricky Slick in the, I guess you could call it the Red Rocket Formula 3, Fortec Motorsports.
Yep.
And to finish up the grid, we have Glenn Miles in the Racing Point Formula 3.
Yes, so being a 2018 livery pack, that'll be at the time Force India / something. I don't know if there is BWT sponsorship on that, but all BWT cars. Oh, he's running to the back of Ricky Slick there. Hopefully he's not caused any damage. They're obviously not paying too much attention. But yeah, very similar to the Racing Point / Force India liveries. It's also on the wrong side of the grid, so I don't know why he was running in the back of him. But anyway, formed up. 1 light, 2 light, 3, 4 lights, 5 lights. Away we go. And it looks like Luke Joyner's had a pretty decent start. I think we've got someone down the back at a bit of a mare. It's like Glenn Miles trying to go 3 wide into turn 1. A little bit of contact there. More contact again. A little bit of bumper cars between, I think, Cracker there and Luke Joyner. Brownie down to P2. Cracker into the lead. Luke Joyner having a look at Brownie into the first chicane there. It's so far Cracker, Brownie, Joyner, Termo up into P4 and all over the back of Luke Joyner now. River Whisper down 1 spot. He's in 5th. Brendan Ross right behind him. We've got a bit of contact between Bolger and Ricky Slick. Turn 7 there. Not Bolger. Ricky Slick trying a very advantageous manoeuvre. Trying to go around the outside of turn 6. And now trying to go up the inside into the second chicane there. And Bolger running wide. And so did River Whisper in front. So that's going to drop Whisper behind Ross and possibly behind Ricky Slick as well, who is having a look up the inside. In fact, Ricky Slick probably will get it done into the hairpin. Yep, up the inside. And we've got yellows out. There is a bit of a spin. And who is that? That's Brendan Ross has dropped back a little bit. But I think that was caused by, I think Brownie's dropped a couple of spots. So just have a look on the replay and just see what has happened here. Yeah, so Brownie just lost it mid-corner. A bit of contact between... Well, Ross had nowhere to go, and neither did... I think it was Turmo had nowhere to go either. But Turmo, as he cut back live, lost it on the sleeping policeman, and that's unfortunately speared Wayne Whitmore into the wall on the side. So his terrible night continues. He's had an absolute mare tonight.
Yeah, very, very unfortunate for Whitmore. It did look he had the best of starts, and I was going to point out that he was probably the biggest loser of that first lap. But tell you what, I think he's just topped the cake there, unfortunately, but not good to see.
Well, he started, I believe, I think it was in 4th place in the first race, and on the second corner was turned around by Brendan Ross. So that started his night off in terrible fashion. It's just really continued. So he's had an absolute mare. At the front, though, Cracker's got a 1.8 second lead over Luke Joyner, who's got Ricky Slick closing in, and Steve Bolger also not far away either. And they've got a few second gap now over Brendan Ross, who's just got past River Whisper on the exit of turn 2. But I reckon Joyner is quicker than Cracker, but he has to deal with Ricky Slick and Bolger. Ricky Slick having a look up the inside of the hairpin. Sorry, not Bolger. Joyner holds on for now. There was a yellow out there somewhere, so I reckon someone's had a half spin.
Sorry, just to interrupt there, but Bolger, yes, he did have a spin halfway through the hairpin, though he managed to recover it.
And he's done it a couple times this evening, so not his favourite corner, as you see Ricky Slick up the inside of Luke Joyner at the final chicane. And got to say, he's looking the goods to take 3 from 3, barring mistake. Behind them, we've got someone in the wall of champions. That is River Whisper. Got Ross and Bolger side by side into turn 1, and Ross sweeps in front of Bolger in turn 2, and he takes the position. But we'll go back, have a look at what River Whisper has done. He was under a bit of attack from Brownie. He's just coming too hot, bit of curb on the inside, and that is a spitting image or spitting replay of what Jacques Villeneuve did in 1997. So if people go back and have a look at Jacques Villeneuve crash at Montreal in 97 on YouTube, they will find that it is pretty much the exact same accident as what River Whisper has had there. So Wall of Champions strikes again, but with damage on 50%, he's able to keep going with what looks like to be minimal damage.
It looks like everyone's pretty well spread out here, which is, but not enough distance between them to be safe. So it's going to be interesting here how this all plays out. And with another 9 laps to go, what are you thinking?
Well, Ricky Slick is closing in quite quickly on Cracker, but Cracker's actually, compared to the pace he's set throughout the night, he's actually travelling quite nicely at the moment. But he's just got to keep his cool, because obviously there still is quite a long way to go. But his pace in this final race and currently is looking quite nice. But he's going to have Ricky Slick probably on the back of him, probably halfway through this lap here. If not by the first split at the pace that Ricky Slick is travelling, as you can see. 34.8 there for Brendan Ross. Pardon me, he's down in 4th place. But 36.4 for Cracker and a 35.2 for Ricky Slick. So 1.2 seconds between them, and then there's still a little bit more pace with Brendan Ross in behind there in 4th place as well.
Yeah, just as I was saying that, Cracker, I'm not too sure whether he was a little bit slow through the final 2 turns, or if it's just straight out raw pace by Ricky Slick, but there was about a 6/10 gap that he managed to pull.
Just having a look behind them, Brendan Ross up the inside of Luke Joyner, and he gets the job done. And that slow exit has sort of balked Steve Bolger. He had to sort of get out of it a little bit, and then was a little bit sideways, and then got on the throttle again, and he's had a half spin, and that stops him down a bit further. I don't believe he's lost a position, but he's lost a lot of time, and he's got Turmo starting to close in on him. And now we do have, looks like what will be a swap for the lead. Ricky Slick up the inside, down the long run down to turn 13 and 14. But doesn't quite have the top speed as Ricky Slick. But lockout from Cracker there, and that's compromised Ricky Slick a bit, and that's going to bring Brendan Ross into play, who's had a much faster run through the final chicane, and he's going to get a bit of slipstream off both of these guys, so he's closed up right up because of that. And around the outside goes Ricky Slick, and around the outside goes Brendan Ross. A very opportunistic move from Brendan Ross, and now he's right in the game, and it is battle joined once again between Brendan Ross and Ricky Slick for the lead. Oh, and now Luke Joyner, he's going to get past. He's going to get past Cracker. So Cracker just getting a little bit sideways through turns 3 and 4 there on the exit of the chicane. And Luke Joyner says, I'll take that. So Luke Joyner, once again, as the night goes on, seems to get a little bit faster and faster. And he's sort of hanging with these guys. So he's doing a pretty solid job at the moment, once again.
So out of that debacle there, Brendan Ross was definitely the biggest winner out of that lot, being able to catch a significant amount of time on Ricky Slick and a couple positions. It's put him right back in the game very early on.
Yeah, getting balked at the chicane really has cost Ricky Slick. He had about 2 seconds or so, and that was all lost because that move, well, not so much that move, it was more so just because Cracker just outbroke himself and had to just park it on the exit of this final chicane. And Ross, being unhindered, was able to go through that at full speed and made up all that time. But what is good to see though is compared to the certainly compared to race 2, the field is a lot closer together, 6 laps in, than what it was in race 2.
It is very nice to see.
You've obviously got a battle for first and second. It's Steve Bolger, 34.7. So there's that pace. He'll just be kicking himself with obviously those half spins he's been having. So he has got pace in that thing. He's just got to dial it back a little bit probably and just be that little bit more consistent, and he will be up there battling for more wins than what he currently does. But he's closing in on Cracker on that last lap, setting a 39, so not a good lap for him, with Cracker's fastest lap being a 36.4.
I'm just looking at Cracker's driving at the moment. He's even compared to what we've seen throughout the weekend, through tonight.
And he's wide again, as is Bolger. So they're both going to pick up warnings there for cutting the track, and Bolger might even try and make a move there, which I probably wouldn't advise after just cut the chicane. But he's going to try it anyway. No, he backs out of it, and Cracker locks up. But no, he's going to try and get him on the switchback. Not quite close enough.
Just adds what I was just saying more there. Cracker, he's very aggressive on the throttle. It looks like the rear is very unsettled in that, coming in brakes and through the corner. And you might need to just pull a little bit of brake bias back just to settle that rear down, possibly.
And there it is. Ross now sets the fastest lap of the race, and Steve Bolger wants to throw away 4th position, getting it all kinds of sideways, and that's going to allow Cracker to, well, at least have a look up the inside into turn 1, but doesn't make it stick, and now he's under attack from Turmo behind, who's also recovering.
It looked like there was a little bit of contact there between Turmo and Cracker. There was a little love tap that you don't normally see in these cars, though looks like everyone's come out pretty well unscathed, but Turmo's still very close to Cracker at this point.
Certainly looks the quicker. A little bit of a lock up there into turn 6, and that's going to allow Turmo to get past Cracker. So Cracker can't quite hold on. His first couple of laps are okay, but he's fallen away as the race has gone on. So perhaps just overworking those tyres and just overdriving it a little bit is starting to cost him. And behind him, Whitmore recovering.
Sorry to interrupt there, though. Ricky Slick and Ross, they're very close. Lots of contact.
Yeah, looks like Ross just turning in a little bit on Ricky Slick, but they're going to once again drive to the final chicane.
There's no love lost between these two. There was contact even before that, further up the road. So
Ross forced to go around the long way this time as Slick goes defensive. He moves back over, does Ricky Slick. I do believe they're coming up to lap traffic. There's Glenn Miles in front, so hopefully he doesn't hinder him again. But Brendan Ross right in the slipstream, all over the gearbox of Ricky Slick, backing off just a little bit before start-finish line there. And lock up there. Very, very slow. He slipped through turn 2. And a bit of a slide on the exit there for Brendan Ross. And, looks like it almost ran into the back of Miles. I don't know what Miles was thinking there, but it's no contact, thankfully. But Slick is all over the place at the moment.
Well, both Ricky Slick and Ross had very nice spatial awareness there to avoid that. That was a very big moment, especially under brakes.
Yeah, could have very easily caught either of them out there, and they could have easily just ran into the back of Glenn Miles. Very similar to what happened at Spa in '98 between Coulthard and Schumacher, where Coulthard going a little bit slower than what Schumacher thought, and run straight into the back of Coulthard, and then they almost had fisticuffs in the pits afterwards. And both Slick and Ross a bit sideways out of the hairpin. They're driving as hard as they can at the moment. They've got about 4.5 seconds over Luke Joyner behind, but Joyner doing a fairly decent job.
It looks like Bolger is DNF.
Yeah, we've got
unfortunately.
He's fallen through the field. Just try and find a replay of that in a moment. Just see what happens into turn 1 here. If Brendan Ross will make a move, he's pretty close. He's got that slipstream, but decides against it. So we'll just try and find what has happened to Steve Bolger here. Looks like he's lost these. Going back on this replay here. Coming into turn 6, he's just lit it up into the wall and lost his front wing, and then he's just binned it. He might not have known that he'd lost his front wing, and then further down that straight he ends up putting it into the barrier, so that's why he's out of the race, unfortunately. Our first retirement of the night, in fact. And now we've got Glenn Miles. Looks like he's getting out of the way of some faster cars, but back in front, Ricky Slick still holds the lead just. But he's got Brendan Ross right behind him, trying to break his stranglehold on the night so far.
Ricky Slick would be very happy at the moment. Brendan Ross, coming into turn 3, made a mistake and had to cut the track, giving him a little bit of breathing room, but it doesn't look like that's been long-lived.
Yeah, that slipstream, I think, just keeping Ross into play at the moment. So there certainly isn't really too much between them. Ross just not quite fast enough down the straight, but he almost ran into the back there, and that'll probably be a track cut as well. So that's at least 2 track cuts for Brendan Ross. You get 4 of those and you get a drive through. As Glenn Miles found out last night, he picked up 12 of them. The GT3s. And Ricky Slick a bit wide at turn 1 there. That's going to allow Ross to close back in once again after having a pretty decent lead there. He's blown half of it just by outbreaking himself into turn 1.
Yeah, you don't want to be doing that too often, which he has been in the past couple laps, just locking the inside wheel.
Yeah, perhaps just a little bit of fatigue, or at least just concentration here. It's just starting to come into play for Ricky Slick, because in the first race he was flawless. In the second race, obviously, he came under a fair amount of attack from Brendan Ross behind, but didn't really make many mistakes. But in this third race, he's made a few more of these little micro mistakes, which has allowed Ross just to stay within fighting distance.
Yeah, and just as you were talking there, he's done it again, and enough so where he's lost about 3/10 to Ross at this stage, so put Ross into some pretty heavy firing power.
He's very, very close, is Brendan Ross, and a little bit of a slide from Ricky Slick, but Slick's been quite good out of the hairpin all night, and looks like he's just got a slightly better run over Ross once again coming out of the hairpin. But Ross will get the slipstream, and he will be very close at the chicane, but I don't think he's going to be close enough for a move.
I think he might have pulled out of the slipstream a little bit too early there. I think if he stayed in there,
yeah, he probably should have just stayed in it just to get that metre or 2 closer and just set himself up nicely through the chicane, but he hasn't done that, and he's cost himself a bit of time. behind them. Luke Joyner is only a couple seconds in front of Turmo now, so Turmo is closing in, or he was closing in just a little bit. And Luke Joyner in third place.
Well, looks like Cracker and Whitmore very close to each other as well. Not too sure if they've been battling for a little while now, but oh wow, they're very close at the moment. So it'd be good to keep an eye on them in these dying moments of the race.
I do believe Whitmore is probably recovering after that early incident, so he'll be driving pretty hard. In fact, Turmo's had a spin at turn 7. He's gone backwards, and he's had to J-turn it to get it back going again. But he'll retain 4th for now, but he's pushing hard and closing in pretty quickly on Luke Joyner. The gap was about 1.5 seconds, I believe. But yeah, just a bit too much throttle. And he got on the curve as well at turn 7. That sent him around. Yeah, it was 1.3 seconds at the first split. It's certainly a lot more than that now. Probably closer towards 10 seconds.
Or if you sneak back to Brendan Ross very quickly, he's catching. He
stays in the slipstream this time. A little bit of a lockup from Slick, but Ross once again too eager on the throttle. Loses the back end and loses his chance to make a move into turn 1 as we begin the final lap of the race.
I think the final curb had a little bit of a helping hand in that situation.
He's very, very close though. He's had a decent run through turn 2. Once again, just too eager on the throttle. He's still pretty close to Slick, but all the momentum he had going through turn 2, he lost it. So his best bet is not going to be close enough into turn 6. They are coming up to lap traffic. Glenn Miles again, hopefully he gets out of the way. And he does, thankfully. Well done, Glenn. Ross had a decent run through turn 7. So he had to just feather off the throttle for a second. And Slick's going to go defensive into turn 8. It's a long way to go around the outside. Ross is going to try a bit of a slide from Slick, so they both go over the chicane. Ross takes the lead, but he had to cut the chicane to do so. So he should probably give that position back, but he's trying to do it so he remains as close as possible. So Slick back into the lead. But Ross now, he has to get a good run out of the hairpin, otherwise once again it's all over. And again, just too eager on the throttle, too much sideways load on the car when he puts the throttle down and just twitches the rear end out. He has got a good run though. But again, he has to go around the outside of the final chicane, which is going to be difficult to do. They're going to try it though. Ross hitting the curb though, that cost him the momentum, and Ricky Slick will just hold on once again. So Ricky Slick takes 3 from 3. Brendan Ross will finish second and ride his car off at the same time. Luke Joyner, Mr. Consistency, he will finish in 3rd place once again. I believe that's his 3rd or 4th podium of the year. So he continues his decent form. He's not the fastest, but he gets the job done. Turmo will finish in P4. Whitmore will come back to finish P5 after his early issues. So he'll be frustrated because he had the pace to battle up the front, but couldn't demonstrate it in any of the races this evening. Cracker eventually finishing in P6. River Whisper coming through the final chicane. He will finish in P7. And behind him, Brownie. He'll need a new race suit after getting quite sideways out of the final chicane. It looks like he's got a massive flat spot on his front right there, so he's driving on a 50-cent piece. And he then just wipes out.
I think that ties the least of his worries now.
Yeah, don't know who. I think that was Brendan Ross that he just wiped out. But
he's now got a Formula Ford.
Formula Ford with probably some massive toe and camber on one of his front tyres as well. But yeah, once again, had some good racing between Ricky Slick and Brendan Ross at the front of the field. In fact, might as well just cut out and there we go. There's a number of drivers there doing doughies, which is, to be honest, it's what we came to see. It's not the racing, it's just the doughies. Because people
gotta love a good doughy.
You do. People are scared to do them in real life because engines aren't exactly cheap. And tyres aren't cheap either. But sim racing, it doesn't matter. So we've got all these guys out here just fanging them around until the engines expire. But once again, just to recap, race 3, we've had Ricky Slick take 3 from 3. Brendan Ross second in all 3 of them, in fact, after he nipped past Turmo right at the death in race 1 and then battling with Ricky Slick in races 2 and 3. Luke Joyner finishing in 3rd place once again on the podium in every round so far this season. Luke Joyner putting together quite a fine campaign. Turmo in P4. He's a bit quicker than what his finishing position will show. It's just a bit inconsistent. That's something he's got to work out. Wayne Whitmore finishing in P5. He had an absolute shocker of a night. He was quite quick all night. Probably the top 5 guys being Bolger, Ross, Slick, and Whitmore. And there wasn't really much between them if you look at their lap times. But Whitmore, unfortunately, just been caught up in incidents all night. Yeah, he finishes in P5 there in race 3. And then in P6, sorry, that was P6 for Wayne Whitmore. And then we had Cracker in P7, who first few laps got a bit of a lead, couldn't quite hold on and just fell away as the race went on. He finished down in P7. And then River Whisper in P8. Glenn Miles, once again, a couple laps down in P9. And Bolger, who for a moment, he set the fastest lap of the race, setting his fastest race lap of the night of a 34.7. But again, just consistency letting him down. And he was our only DNF of the night. So it's good to see that quite a few guys out there just nice and consistent. No retirements for most of the night. And some good racing. All right, so that will just about do us. So before, obviously, we do head off, obviously, Josh, thanks for coming along and giving me a hand. And who would you say was your driver of the evening?
Oh, mate, just from what I've seen, look, there was some fairly good drives across the board there, though I have to give it to Ricky Slick. He's to that they've got to give credit to Ross. He was able to put some pretty mega pressure on Ricky, though. Ricky was able to hold that pretty well. Yeah, look, I have to say Ricky in this case.
Yeah, Ricky certainly fantastic this evening, taking obviously comfortable win in race 1, it has to be said, but he was under a lot of pressure in races 2 and 3. But managed to hold on. Brendan Ross, again, it was pretty good throughout the night, but it's just those little micro mistakes and just overdriving it coming out of corners, sort of costing him in the end. It didn't give him the chance to get that really good run that you need to get a good move up the inside. So that cost him, but still second in every race. It's good for his championship and good for his consistency as well. But
He definitely gets a consistency award alongside Ricky. So yeah, very good effort from both parties.
Yep, and then so Luke Joyner again, not the fastest guy out there, but as I keep saying, every time we have these series, these Monday night series, he'll be a bit slow at the start of the night, but come the final race of the evening, he always seems to find a bit of pace and end up in the top 5. So he's once again kept that going. So he did a fantastic effort to claim third once again in the third race. But that just about concludes it for this evening. I don't believe we have any. Oh no, I'm trying to think if we do have anything on Wednesday or Thursday this week at Automobilista Australia. I do believe there might be a TCAC event. I'm just going to have a look through Discord to see. But next Sunday is the Formula One at. Just give me a moment. I do believe. Yes, on Sunday night we do have the Monaco Grand Prix. So the circuit for that will be out tomorrow, and that will be a pretty interesting event. Obviously, Monaco always is a very attritional race. Hopefully, it's not too attritional as we don't have the biggest field. But that won't be broadcast. But we do hope a few more people show a bit of interest and rock up. And then next Monday we do have the Touring Car Championship, and that is from the Velocita circuit. That's the full length layout, and we haven't raced there before, and it's going to be a pretty interesting race. It's going to be it's a pretty technical track, but it does have some fast, fun, undulating corners to take care of. So that's something that the touring car drivers are going to have to deal with next Monday. But yeah, just going through Discord, just having a look to see the race schedule for the touring cars, or the TCAC, and I don't believe there is anything this week. So there's no racing on Thursday or on Wednesday. So from Josh and I do hope you've enjoyed this evening's racing, and we'll catch you next week. Cheers.